U.S. President Joe Biden has approved sending additional forces to Eastern Europe as Washington moves to avert a feared Russian invasion of Ukraine. Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby said on Wednesday that troops would soon be moved to Poland, Romania and Germany in response to the current security climate. The announcement came a day after Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday accused the West of trying to provoke Moscow into a war. In his first comments on the Ukraine crisis in more than a month, Putin also reiterated Russia's security demands and said it was clear that the Kremlin's fundamental concerns had been ignored by Washington and NATO. Here are the latest updates. 25 minutes ago, 1850 GMT, Moscow says U.S. deployment to Eastern Europe destructive steps. Moscow on Wednesday denounced as destructive the deployment of several thousand U.S. troops to Eastern Europe amid ongoing fears that Russia might invade Ukraine. Not substantiated by anyone, destructive steps which increase military tension and reduce scope for political decisions, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Alexander Grushko told the Interfax news agency. 55 minutes ago, 1820 GMT, UK's Johnson tells Putin, Ukraine incursion would be tragic miscalculation. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson told Vladimir Putin that any incursion into Ukraine would be a tragic miscalculation during a call, Johnson's office said in a statement. The Prime Minister expressed his deep concern about Russia's current hostile activity on the Ukrainian border, a spokesperson from Johnson's office said. He emphasized the need to find a way forward which respects both Ukraine's territorial integrity and right to self-defense. The Prime Minister stressed that any further Russian incursion into Ukrainian territory would be a tragic miscalculation. They also agreed to work towards a peaceful resolution of the crisis over Ukraine, according to Downing Street. Boris Putin Johnson expressed his deep concern about Russia's current hostile activity, his office says. File, Reuters. 1 hour ago, 1758 GMT, Ukraine, no imminent threat of Russian invasion. Ukraine does not believe it is at risk from an imminent full-scale invasion by Russia, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba said, but it is preparing for all scenarios, urging the country's Western allies to remain rational in their presentation of the current risk posed. Kuleba said that the buildup of Russian troops on the border is the most pressing concern for his government. 2 hours ago, 1730 GMT, NATO chief welcomes U.S. troops deployments to Eastern Europe. NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg welcomed the U.S. decision to deploy additional forces to Germany, Poland and Romania amid heightened tensions with Russia about Moscow's military buildup on Ukraine's borders. This is a powerful signal of U.S. commitment, and comes on top of other recent U.S. contributions to our shared security, including 8,500 troops at high readiness for the NATO Response Force, and the USS Harry S. Truman Carrier Strike Group under NATO command in the Mediterranean, Stoltenberg said in a statement. Our deployments are defensive and proportional, and send the clear message that NATO will do whatever is necessary to protect and defend all allies, he added. NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg speaks during a news conference. Stoltenberg says the development is a powerful signal of U.S. commitment. File, AP, 2 hours ago, 1659 GMT, U.S. to deploy more troops to Eastern Europe. The United States is sending 2,000 additional soldiers to Europe and repositioning another 1,000 from Germany to Romania to ensure the robust defense of European NATO members, the Pentagon has said, amid the ongoing impasse between Russia and Ukraine. John Kirby told reporters that the troop deployment would take place in the coming days. He said it is separate from, and in addition to, the 8,500 soldiers that the Pentagon put on heightened alert last week. Read more here. 1a. U.S. instructor trains Ukrainian soldier. A U.S. instructor trains Ukrainian soldiers Western Ukraine last month. File, Ukrainian Defense Ministry Press Service via AP, 3 hours ago, 1637 GMT, Britain intercepted and escorted 4 Russian bombers. Royal Air Force. Britain intercepted and escorted 4 Russian bomber aircraft approaching its area of interest, a Royal Air Force spokesman said. Quick reaction alert. Typhoon fighters based at RAF Lossmouth supported by Voyager from RAF Brise Norton were scrambled today against unidentified aircraft approaching the UK area of interest. Subsequently we intercepted and escorted 4 Russian Bear aircraft, the spokesman said in an emailed statement. The aircraft did not enter Britain's sovereign airspace. 3 hours ago, 15:54 GMT, U.S. troops not going to fight in Ukraine, Kirby says. Kirby stressed the U.S. troops being deployed to Eastern Europe are not going to fight in Ukraine. The military movements, are not permanent moves. They respond to current conditions, he added. Both Romania and Poland border Ukraine. 3 hours ago, 15:48 GMT, Russian legislator slams destructive U.S. step. Al Jazeera's Dorsa Jabari, reporting from Moscow, said the first deputy chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee in Russia's State Duma, Dmitry Novikov, had quickly denounced Washington's decision to shift troops to Eastern Europe. He's saying that this is an absolutely destructive step and that it will complicate the situation, Jabari said. He also went on to say that these actions can be qualified as an attempt to hack the fragile negotiation process that is ongoing regarding the security guarantees Moscow is looking for from the Americans, she added. So it appears that the Russians are already seeing this as a step backwards. Interactive conflict between Ukraine and Russia at a glance. 4 hours ago, 15:33 GMT. Social media posts call on Russians to join separatist forces as the crisis shows no sign of easing. Russian volunteers are being sought to reinforce separatist forces in eastern Ukraine over social media networking sites. Read more here. 4 hours ago, 15:22 GMT, diplomacy is deterring Russian attack but worst case not avoided yet. Kiev says energetic diplomacy is helping to avert the threat of a Russian military offensive against Ukraine but the worst-case scenario has not been avoided yet, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba says. Kuleba told an online briefing that Moscow had not yet massed enough forces to mount a full-scale invasion and that Ukraine and the U.S. were aligned in their assessments of the threat of a Russian offensive. 4 hours ago, 15:15 GMT. Russia increasing force readiness near Ukraine. U.S. satellite company says new satellite images suggest Russia has bolstered the overall readiness of its military deployments in Belarus, Crimea and Western Russia by bringing in more personnel and troops, a private U.S. satellite imagery company has said. Maxar Technologies said in a statement that the images were taken from January 19 to February 1. It noted that while Russia had deployed military equipment and units near Ukraine over the past couple of months, in many cases few troops or new accommodation units for additional personnel had been observed. But the new images showed fresh and significant deployments in Belarus and more personnel at various military sites, Maxar statement said. Troop tents, shelters for personnel have been seen at virtually every deployment location in Belarus, Crimea and Western Russia, which suggests that the units are now accompanied with troops and have increased their overall readiness level, Maxar said. Moreover, local military training activity, including live-fire artillery and maneuver training, has been observed in progress at numerous training areas. 5 hours ago, 14:40 GMT, elderly Ukrainians, I was born in a war and will die in Var. Some of the 900,000 pensioners living on the front line of a years-long war in eastern Ukraine fear they will not see a resolution to the conflict in their lifetime. At least with World War II, things were over quickly. This war lingers and is now in its 8th year. We can only hope that everything will be over soon, Maria, an 86-year-old grandmother in Orykov, told Al Jazeera. Read more here. 5 hours ago, 14:29 GMT, U.S. troops to deploy to Eastern Europe in coming days. Reports the Pentagon is expected to imminently announce that U.S. troops will be sent to Eastern Europe in the coming days after Biden formally approved additional military deployments to the region, an unnamed U.S. official has told Reuters. Biden has directed more than 3,000 U.S. troops to deploy to bolster European allies, The Wall Street Journal reported. About 2,000 American troops will deploy from the U.S. to Poland and Germany and about 1,000 will reposition from Germany to Romania, the journal said.